and welcome to the media review segment of Insight. I'm Eunice Johnson, and today my guest is Ben Shemang. He is the Deputy Director, News, Voice of Nigeria. He is also a veteran broadcaster, and today we would be discussing the recent fuel crisis, a media perspective to it. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Eunice.
The fuel crisis came like from somewhere. We couldn't even explain how it happened. And then suddenly again, we see it fizzling out. Now, how would you assess the overall media coverage of the whole situation while it was on?
Expected of the media, of course, this fuel scarcity thing came like a whirlwind. And of course, a storm, a tornado, a kind of. So you expected that the media will actually feast on it. So it was fun, let me put it that way, that some people thought, let me give the news. And how is it, how was the news given? It was nice for them to go around, seeing the long stretches of cars, the struggling here and there, the fighting and all that stuff, to report that, yes, it has come to stay for real. A thing that had long gone, but it simply resurfaced. So in the mannerism of journalism, once it is the unusual, of course the press will want to feast on it to give the people who indeed deserve to know what is happening in society.
And do you think they did that?
Yeah, they did that because I saw that newspapers could spare some times to give not just the articles, they also had photographs. And of course, the television aspect of it all, I saw NTA people going around the place, feasting around the federation to ensure that the populace get to know. So in terms of coverage, yes, it was properly covered because it is so unusual. Because it's taken a long time. We never had it. Those days, every end of year, it was like the normal norm. But since it became stable, now that it has come back, it became an unusual thing. Yes. So unusualness also is part of the news.
Exactly. Odd things, oddities.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, but would you say that, for instance now, like you mentioned, the NTA followed it up from the scratch and tried to see different angles to it as it kept unfolding. But would you say that Nigerians were taken through the root causes of the scarcity? Because so many people were asking what was really wrong. So do you think the media did justice to telling them this was what caused the scarcity?
Honestly, I think that I'm not passing a kind of blanket blame on the media when it comes to this aspect. In terms of going to the root cause of the fuel scarcity, the media didn't go into what we call investigative journalism, because if this thing happens, it means there were already warning signals. And if there were warning signals, what were they? Who were the causes? How could this would have nipped in the bud? This was not a kind of taken care of by the media. All we did was to just feast on what was at the present circumstance. And again, even if going by way of probing to know, the role of DPR, for example, Directorate of Petroleum Resources, what's their role when indeed it was also discovered that there were some filling stations that were in illegal places? Who approved that? Is there no development control that would have seen all of these? Incidentally, these were places where petrol was hidden. And the journalists, I think we didn't go into all these things, not until security operatives discovered some of these things. And incidentally, if you check, many of these journalists live in virtually every area in this Abuja and everywhere in Nigeria. We ought to have also gone into what we call due diligence, in-depth analysis, and give real insight, just like this program is all about insight. We should have gone deeper to dig to the root of many of the causes. And again, we've seen the president say, look, some people must account for this embarrassment. Fine. It shouldn't just go by expression. Let those expressions bring into practical steps. How do we foster this? Again, why is it that the 4 refineries in Nigeria are not working at installed capacity? we are still importing. Nigeria is Africa's #1 in terms of fuel supply. Why is it that we are still importing refined fuel when indeed we could refine this? Again, we failed to also see how far Dangote has gone in bringing up his own refinery. Probably that would have been a kind of a shock absorber. The government is also talking of what they call modular refineries.
Okay.
These are small refineries that could be established by communities in the Niger Delta or some small business kind of to refine and augment what the former refineries are doing.
But such similar situation occurred during the administration of President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, and where he had to bring it down. You know, the subsidy removal issue came up and everything. And then when this administration came in, we were told that with the removal of fuel subsidy and then with the current amount, such thing would most likely not reoccur again. So why do you think such a thing still happened recently? And do you think that if it could happen, since it has been something that has been like a ritual, and then it came up even when Nigeria has already had the assurance that such would not reoccur, could you explain or give us the likelihood of such not coming up in the nearest future again, or what the media could do to make it known to the public that this was what caused this one and it might not reoccur?
Yes, the issue of Jonathan days compared with Buhari days, something is still missing. If you check, the National Assembly went on a recess, on holidays. But today, as we are talking, the Committee on Downstream is back. And they're saying, look, there's a blackmail somewhere. Because if government is saying there is subsidy, and at the point, they're quoting some government sources that government wrote to the National Assembly seeking for a kind of loans, some approval of money, so that subsidy could be returned. Now the Senate is saying they never saw that letter. And we're talking of same government, same Nigerians. Let us join hands and alleviate some of these problems. In as much as we begin to dance in different directions, it will not help us. Therefore, the factors that were the days of Jonathan tend to crop up. The refineries are still down. Where you have turnaround maintenance, they are not being done the way they ought to be. And in terms of management, are we actually managing it very well? A situation where I recall those days of Goodluck Jonathan, there were times they were doing crude oil for exchange with refined oil. If you take crude oil and you give out to some countries in Europe and they bring you refined oil, you are the loser. You know, what do you have? Just say a cup of crude oil. You have the engine oil there. You have Vaseline, Shell Tox, all sorts of insecticides, and all sorts of things. So when you give that for a cup of refined fuel, you see you are the loser. And this is time we begin to look at the Nigerian engineers. What are they capable of doing? Since the 60s, even though at independence we were simply given a flag.
Which you would,
but I mean,
you would say the media is not doing all those
the
things.
Media ought to be to conscientize Nigerians, challenge even the engineers, the petroleum engineers. What are we doing to resolve this kind of a thing? This
is disheartening because you're pointing out so many areas that one wouldn't have even thought that, you know, existed, and yet we have the agenda setters. You know, maybe you would say that they haven't done enough in that area. But very quickly, because time would not permit us to delve into so many other areas. But the Senate President, Dr. Bukola Saraki, was said to have directed that the recess be cut short in order to accommodate an industry stakeholders meeting to help look into the fuel crisis, you know, to bring it to an end. Now, would you say that meeting or whatever came out of that was contributed to the improved situation? Because we didn't really see in the media what made things change all of a sudden. So would you say that contributed to the change in the situation?
Yes, President Buhari made a statement. He said some people are out to blackmail Nigerians and the government, and they are used to, or they were used to, having this kind of a crisis where they will benefit from. The white man will always call it fishing in troubled waters. It's when some people are suffering that some people will smile to the banks. But having said so, we expect, as the president said, he is going to dig into the root cause of all of this. The media should just follow up that president's statement. As we have observed, these lines have simply disappeared into thin air. So what happened?
Exactly.
This is where, again, the media is called to account for some actions of government or inactions of government or individuals. Because you could see IPMAN, Independent Petroleum Marketers Association, the NNPC, they all are busy accusing themselves, counter-accusations here and there. So the media should be up and doing.
Yeah, with all that you've said, it is obvious that the media is not just saddled with the responsibility of surveillance, but also after surveying what is happening, you should also bring it to the fore and make people aware of the issues and every stage of whatever it is that is happening in the society. We've been discussing the fuel crisis, recent fuel crisis, how it came and went, and then also the way forward. My guest has been Ben Shemang. He is the Deputy Director News, Voice of Nigeria. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much.
It's been a jolly good ride on the Media Review segment. Thank you very much for being part of it.
Yeah, I'm also quite intriguing.
Yeah, it was. And even though everybody looks forward to aging, yeah, we should also give them a voice in the society. That's it for another episode of Insight.
For one?
Yes, I am. Everybody looks forward to it. Yes, that's it for another episode of Insight. Do stay tuned. Join us same time next week. For now, we say goodbye.
Yeah, we always say aging comes in bands. If you're between the age of 1 and 10, you're in a particular band. 20 to 40, you're in a particular band. 40 to 60, a particular band. So the very day you're born, you start aging. Don't wait on it catching up with you. Be part of the train. Well, that's about that on Insight today. On behalf of all of us, always be there. Bye-bye.